gracious thy name. Purity, how gracious thy flame. Light will claim the soul of men, and as it asserts its claim upon them, they will feel a release of the pressures of existence. They will feel a release of the great God flame, which I am wielding in his name this night, commemoratively, in memory of the service of beloved Jesus to this earth planet and its people. Go and do thou likewise. Call forth light. Be an avatar. Be consecrated to purity. Be that which thou darest to be. For if mankind, in gazing upon thee, precious one, see a muddied stream of imperfection, God does not. And it is his light that will give you your freedom, not mankind's sense of imperfection about thee. It is God's light that will assert the power of the divine mission for thee. Not a wasted life, not a life in vain, but a life of devotion, because it is linked to the great flame itself, the flame of life. Immortality, blessed one, is a gift of God, and what God hath wrought, let the soul of men rejoice in. He is your perfection. It is his life that beats your heart. It is his light that is your purity. And it is his light that lets the healing oil of universal substance flow to assuage the hurt of every man, regardless of the cause of his pain or anguish. When mankind are willing to relinquish their hold upon the substance of their own life, when they are willing, I say, to bear faith with Almighty God, who has created them and sustained them to the present hour, they will find in that sense of complete freedom and awareness of his loving care a renewal of the most ancient covenant of existence. The Father, Mother, God relationship is one of close harmony between the loving one and the object of that love. When there leaps into manifestation in your heart a sense of the beauty of God, and His love and care for you. When that joy that leaps in your heart surges through your flesh form and your mind as the power of light, it is the power of God unto perfection. And there is no mortal concept or idea that is able to have any power over that thought. For this is a right and divine thought which no man can gainsay. The power of thought itself, when rightly exercised, is splendid indeed. For by your thoughts you will be justified, and by your thoughts you will be condemned. Accept then the right thought of Almighty God for you. It is His light. Accept then the thought of Almighty God for you. It is your crown of life. Accept then the right thought of Almighty God as your birthright, and be free. What folly it is for mankind to presume to mistrust God or that which He hath wrought. The Godhead, precious ones, has no desire to practice treachery upon you. There is no despair in God, nor discouragement, nor fear. All this is from without. And those who presume to question the authenticity of the light that beats their hearts must kneel one day before God and pay allegiance and homage to Him. This cannot be until they discard their unbelief. They must wear out, in some cases, by karmic experience, their own garments of unbelief, until tiring of that, they discard it and cry out to be clothed with faith in God. Precious ones, you say you have faith in God within yourselves, but you do not have faith in God within others. Do you know that the same power of God that beats your heart beats the hearts of all mankind, and all are sustained by His light? In that sense, then, of the universal Christ light, I am come this night to quicken the power within mankind of that most marvelous essential ingredient to happiness, faith. And I say, let faith in the resurrection temple be established here tonight and flow out into the world of form. Let the universe itself feel the tread of that mighty conqueror, the ascended Master Jesus. Let the power of the universe bow to His God flame, for He has offered the entire universe, all that He is and has ever externalized in the service of the light. And the light tonight does honor Him, as it honors every son of heaven, to bring to each one greater awareness of the measured beat and tempo of the divine plan, accelerated now in the face of all mankind's mounting discord, as the greatest release of freedom the world has ever known. Mankind today, standing at the crossroads of experience, are puzzled by all that occurs upon the world scene, and they cry out at times in the dark, as though they were in the dark, seeking for some ray of light to penetrate human gloom, with a power to understand that which seemeth not to be understood by them? I say to all, the answer lies in light. Light is the glow of God's fires, reflected in the mirror of creation. Light is the beauty of holiness, the luster and splendor of the vessels of the holy temple. Light shines in the great lunar orb reflected from the sun, and light shines in the sun and also in the myriad stars that adorn the great skyey crown of infinity. For the finite world hangs also as a tiny child, and the finite universe hangs as a tiny child with one hand raised upward to its mother, and tugs upon eternal substance, and receives the boon of God's love dispersed as light. Light makes the stars to shine. It is light that reflects the glow of joy in human eyes. It is light that causes your photographs to develop. It is light that sensitizes the soul of man that he can read the record of truth. It is light that is the great gift of God, and it is light that heals and bestows the generative and regenerative power upon mankind. O thou light of God that never fails, thou resplendent garment of the Mother of the world, O light of the cosmic Christ, thou great banner unfurled, O light, descend now and defend the cause of justice and truth. O light, expand and bring to men the comfort of purity. O light, O light, O light, descend. I call now to light to defend and defend and defend the holy cause. I call now to light to expand the understanding of his laws. I call unto light to release mankind from sinister claws and see that all are established in the truth that sets them free. Children of the light you are called, and your faces reflected his splendor. Children of the light you are called, and your hearts felt the great hands of his presence, the pressure of God molding and shaping the clay vessel until it became changed by the great potter's hands to reflect the nobility of a Son of God. Light shone forth from his face, and light was established in every place where his feet trod. How blessed are the feet of those who preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things to all people. But, O precious ones, as I speak to you, consider for just a moment how that there are apostles of doom going about throughout the earth and seeking to do the work of the father of liars. Consider then how the shadowed forces enclose mankind around as the jaws of death itself, to prevent the resurrection and seal up mankind in an eternal tomb of matter according to the mistaken concepts of men. Then comes the bolt from on high. 'Tis light that flashes through the sky and unfurls the banner of the Lord and speaks to all with the power of heaven's sword. I am your freedom by God's word, to shatter the bonds of human concepts and bring strength to those who lay even in the graves. The power of resurrection, to raise mankind, to free him from oppression, to let mankind feel the joy of resurrection. O resurrection light, descend, descend, descend. O resurrection light, let men feel your great outpouring and release. O resurrection light, bathe the earth in the great sonnets of divine peace. Those love poems of God that speak to all and will impart some sweet message from his blessed heart. This is the power of heaven's law that causes mankind to stand in awe and to know that the bond of purity will make men free. And thus today, as in days of yore, the substance from on high, forevermore, releases now its great bonds of love to gather men to heaven's own power, to move all oppression and all oppression's band, to roll away the stone that covers the land, and let the power of light descend. For the stone itself, precious ones, cannot admit this light, but blocks the course of light in its descent. And thus we say, let your hearts be now renewed, and feel the power of love that ends old feuds, and brings to mankind the power to overcome all tyranny's oppression, and say, I am done with thee. O precious ones, it is light, light, light that defends. It is light that inflames the hearts of men with courage and with trust. It is light, and light alone, that makes men just. And thus I say to all, let us stand again and renew all the covenants of God that come from high up in the heavens so blue. Let us now defend the light that comes down. Let us now defend man's right to wear a crown of light, and know that he and he alone, all one with God, is always and forevermore a sun, a ray of light that God can speak to and say, well done, for thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And thus I say, be free from all disease, and know that God forevermore heeds thy pleas, and lifts thee to his altar for release. O light, O light, O light that ne'er shall cease, let these receive thy courage rare. Let these receive the courage of my prayer, and feel the surge of currents bold and brave, the currents of life unafraid, to go forth in thy name, to go forth now to claim their victory over shame, and win for air, for air, for air, for I, for I, for I, for I am thy light. I thank you. Gracious ones, the will of God is like a light upon the mountain, and as I am tonight aware of the great joy that floods your hearts when you contemplate the holy will of God, I have a renewed contact with those of you who will consecrate your own wills to the will of God, that you may feel the pulsations of his immortal love blazing upon the altar of your heart, consecrating your being and renewing you in every good and perfect act of righteousness, justice, and truth. Gracious ones, here in our abode, the will of God is like a pulsating flame. We are imbued with the energy of that flame, and we are consecrated to no other idea. Singleness of purpose gathers together the energies of the mind and being of man. And when that singleness of purpose is translated into right action by performance on the part of the Chela, there springs into manifestation a magnificent karmic record, one which contains the treasures of heaven, and there upon the page, made glorious by your own energies and the joint energies of God, there is recorded service in God's name. And when that service returns to you with the blessing of karma and the energies poured out upon you in that returning wave, you will find a new impetus for right action. And thus it is a ever-progressive outreach into the eternal kingdom. Precious ones, as I come to you tonight, I desire to strengthen the bonds of the hearts of mankind in their respect for the will of God. To say the will of God is good is not enough. One must contemplate the full meaning of the will of God. These are not mere words, but they are the vibratory actions of cosmos. They are the vibratory actions of the cosmos. They are the vibratory actions of countless yearnings, yearnings originating not only in the heart of God, but also in the heart of man, who, perceiving in the planetary chain certain elements of imperfection, desires to see the will of God done upon earth, even as it is in heaven. Now, when you behold bent backs, when you see the weight of oppression and the burdens of mankind, when you see the ravages of disease, when you see the turmoil of the world, the unrest, the seething currents of shadowed substance, you are aware that this is not the will of God, and you immediately can summon the energies of heaven to invoke and evoke purity from the very heart of God. And thus, by right action, many can sustain the ancient covenants, and the way of the Lord will be made plain. Precious ones, the vibratory action and fiber of man's being is far more important to the Most High God than a mere high-sounding phrase, which may in the eyes of heaven be empty indeed and devoid of reality. Reality is that power which can endure through the centuries and remain fixed as the North Star, as the pole star of man's being. Reality is that which cannot be distorted by the cunningness of those men whom we deem the wicked. I call to your attention then, O you who love the will of God, how that the garments of perfection which you aspire to wear are tangible substance of the sacred fire. Mankind today, born into this world of form and being instructed by one another and also by the imperfection that is manifest here, so frequently become schooled in the ways of the world that they do not contemplate cosmic possibilities. They do not consider the depth of the wisdom of God and His righteousness. We today, in the great cosmic onrush and the search for perfection, desire to aspire ourselves to a greater measure of the fullness of divine grace, that we may be better examples even in the ascended state to our peers and also to those of you who seek a better example in us and in those who represent us. And therefore I point out to all of you that the sustaining of the power of truth and righteousness in the very fiber of your being will produce not only a victorious release for yourselves, but will bring courage and faith to the world and to mankind who are awaiting the splendor of His appearing. The appearing of the Christ, precious one, occurs then in the lives of many, and when the many recognize the second coming of the great Master into their own world, where one is taken and another left, you will soon find that many sheaves will be gathered into the storehouse of God. Now mankind have many concepts of imperfection concerning holy things. There are many distortions and religious concepts in the minds of man which through rote and custom seem perfect and most natural unto mankind, for they are familiar and they are old and they are accepted. But in the great onrush toward cosmic progress, it is so vital and essential in the light of holy reason, for we do not ask you to accept that which you cannot equate with the full measure of the Spirit of light within your heart, that you should hold with the idea and concept then that perfection is an advancement, a mark of progress, in a march for progress, when mankind must search out for themselves the way that God would make plain to them. Many have not pondered on the concept that the Most High God requires action on the part of the individual monad whom He has vested with so much of His love. The measure of God's love that is poured out upon mankind, precious ones, is not only lavished upon the youth of the world by parents and by society, but by many invisible beings of protection and perfection that have given of their holy energy and love for the sake of one individual life stream. Do you see then, precious ones, with all of this outpouring of a most magnificent love, how that many today, the youth of the world, have a sense of being unloved and feel that they are unwanted? Precious ones, does it not seem an enigma to your own life streams when you pause to consider this factor? Mankind, you see, are aware of a few things, and they have a small measure of the dream of perfection within their consciousness, but they have a yearning, and we would amplify that yearning by the great power of God's heart as His heart surges through our own and bears the energies of heaven to the planet below, that all who will receive it may feel the renewed beat of fervor. We come not tonight to chastise mankind. We come not tonight to enforce or reinforce chains upon mankind, but to break those chains which are presently holding men in bondage. I tell you, precious ones, there is no greater bondage than that which is self-enforced upon mankind. For most among men today are unaware of all the energy which they have carelessly cast as stones of stumbling before themselves and others among mankind. I tell you, and my testimony is true, that there are few today who would knowingly do so, and therefore the great bane of ignorance exists. And I point out to you tonight that mankind must learn to honestly face themselves. And when they face themselves in the great initiatic tests which come progressively to mankind, they are made aware of the great dweller upon the threshold of being, that often monstrous creation which they have made by their recalcitrant energies and the thoughts and powers of negation. The forces which they themselves have created, they must face and slay by the power of the light that is within them. When the Master Christ was upon the tree of Calvary, the call sounded forth. And the call sounded forth to God. Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Do you know the strain of that moment? Do you know the meaning of that initiation? Do you know that he stood face to face before the darkness of the planet itself, and by the light that was within him sustained for all mankind for that moment the brightness of the victory of light over darkness, raising the entire evolution of this planet to a new niche of cosmic achievement. Today, mankind, in the banal and senseless fraud that perpetrates the human ego and sets it up as an idol against God, does not recognize the power of life itself, and therefore gratitude wanes, and with the waning of gratitude, man is not able to summon from on high the powers that would give him his freedom. This is because it is a cyclic round where it is likened unto a little dog who bites his own tail and crieth out in agony for the suffering occasioned by his own act. Mankind then must cast aside the concept of dogs. For I say unto you that that which is holy ought not to be cast to the dogs, and that which is holy in the eyes of God is your own life, the precious distillation and essence of the sacred fire, the energies of God that poured down into the matrix of holy motherhood and brought forth a man-child. The androgynous nature of man is seldom taken into consideration, and the generic phrase, "In the image of God created he them, male and female created he them," passes unnoticed by theologians who do not take into account the great hidden meaning of life. I come then tonight to reinforce in the student body and in mankind the great holy energies that shall give mankind the victory over the beasts of the field, which are the mass accumulation of substance which mankind have generated for centuries and are a negative force in the atmosphere. I am sure you recognize I am not referring to the cattle upon the 1,000 hills, but I am referring to those invisible beasts of negative substance whose dragon-like appearance in the atmosphere, to those of us who can see, causes mankind to enter into a feeling of jealousy, of envy, of strife, of confusion, and nations as well as individuals fall prey to these beasts of human creation. Let us then summon from the holy energies of the elect the power that will cause mankind to correct the distortions upon the screen of life and awaken the masses of mankind to the mighty power of the resurgent Christ image, that the second coming of Christ come not only to the few but to the many, that the elect be summoned from the four corners of the earth, and that the world itself no longer dwell in shadow and blight, but in the abundant life envisioned by the Master Jesus, the abundant image envisioned by every master of the great white brotherhood, the piercing white light of the sacred fire. The eyes of God are upon you, precious ones. You are the elect of God, and to you tonight is brought the sacred fire substance that can purify the world. And I think also, if you will ponder deeply upon it, you will realize that that so-called today ragged band of 12 disciples and the Christ did change the entire planet by the power of the energy that came down upon Judean hillsides and quickened the pulse of mankind. Do you think today that in this age, precious ones, that the guardian spirits of this planet are prone to permit mankind to take away the flag of victory that shall give mankind the victory of God in human affairs? I tell you, nay, for there are far more arrayed on behalf of the forces of light, of victory and truth, the hosts of the Lord invisible, than mankind can even dream of. Remember the words of Jesus, spoken of old. Ye have no power except it were given you of my Father, and if I would, I could call presently, and he would send me more than 12 legions of angels. Do you see then how that God is the sustaining victory for mankind, and his presence in you all is testimony, living flame testimony of the victory, the resurrection victory that will overcome the world? Won't you please be seated? Now, precious ones, I would like to call to your attention that with me tonight, here in the Darjeeling Council Chambers in India, is your beloved Saint Germain and Chananda, together with the Master Kuthumi. And before us is vital information of planetary need. The mankind of earth do not realize that the sinister dragon-like energies of the entire planet have currently anchored themselves and posited themselves in the Far East, and that there are diversionary measures being taken in order to overthrow the powers of democracy and freedom. We are this night alerting many in defense of freedom to this, that they may recognize that peril may come in through the back door as well as the front. And we therefore have caused a special raid to release a specific cord of information, a specific sonnet of divine truth to an individual in physical embodiment. And that individual will find a new realization dawning within them. And because of that light, the light of God that never fails, we hope some measure of planetary peril may be averted. We cannot predict at our level the actions and attitudes of mankind, for I think that all of you know, as Saint Germain has so often told you, mankind are most unpredictable. But when mankind become anchored in divine grace, they will reflect the stability of the ascended Master. I regretfully say unto you that I must take my adieu tonight, very shortly, for the affairs of state pertaining to this world pose ever new and recurrent problems. I assure you that when the veil is parted for you, and you are able to enter into our octave and see clearly, that you will find out that behind the scenes, in higher octaves of light, tremendous service is being offered for the mankind yet unascended. And I hope that the measure of gratitude that you may develop this night will cause you to expand that measure until we can give you greater blessings over the return currents of the outgoing love sent from your octave. I thank you for your attention upon the light of God that never fails. I thank you for your precious interest, and I pray that each day in the future will be one of unfolding divinity, where the latent powers within your world will become more and more manifest, so that you may recognize that today the living God has upon this planet the self-same power as of old, and that men and women today are being taken while others are left behind in the doldrums of human nonsense. Let us end this with a most constructive note. Let us end this with a cry for victory. Let us end this with a word, Excelsior. I thank you. mind repose as on a couch. Let wisdom be given its honored place. Holy wisdom, celestial, quiet, peaceful, as a mountain stream sparkling in the sun, gurgling with joy, racing over rock and twig. So let pure flow of wisdom from on high bring refreshment to the soul, to the consciousness. As I am come this night, I am thinking now of how individuals are fixed in a state resembling rigor mortis, of how their consciousness is fastened as to a hitching post, of how mankind are in reality bound. And I yearn to bestow upon all the great power of freedom that holy wisdom can bring, so that men whose flaming identity is within their form may master the art of stretching great ribbons of identity out into space, fingers of awareness penetrating through the density of substance and drawing the vibratory action of external conditions within for analysis upon the holy table of the heart, where the great law of God is spread with the maps and charts of cosmic knowledge, so that men may compare earthly concepts and ideas with divine ones and see the tiny, puny attitudes which mankind have clung to for so long, for what they really are, a confining prison of thought, whose matrices do keep mankind bound age after age, when the beauteous star of his illumination and Christ's love shone long ago, drawing us across the sands to his place, to bestow upon him gold and frankincense and myrrh. With what regard men today honor wisdom, and it is so, but the wisdom which they honor is like a great freezer chest for the beautiful, redundant, electronic energies vibrating in the fruits of the soil are frozen and placed within these great freezer chests, supposedly to lock in all the goodness of the disappearing essence. For indeed, mankind, there is some loss that occurs in this attempted preservation. And so it is with mere knowledge itself, unless that knowledge come from the highest sources. It becomes a frozen edible, which mankind withdraw from the chest of memory and hope that they can retain some great perspective of sociology, of the humanities, of culture, of art, music, literature, drama, happiness, sparkling, effervescence, joy, poised at the tip of the mind, so that they may enjoy and give pleasure to others. For the pursuit of happiness is ever deemed as a great boon to life by most men and women. How then shall we awaken mankind to the reality of the God power within? How shall we show them the means of developing thrust, that they may reach out from their being the fingers of the mind and penetrate through substance and draw substance within and know the God core of matter, that they may know the divine ideas from human ones, that they may distinguish for themselves the purity of motive dawning in the Christed mind of themselves and not another. To see in another the dawning of beauty is well, but it is essential that men and women see within themselves the hand of God. For what God hath wrought in the world is a blessing to all, but must be realized by the individual one, that the joys of heaven and the treasures thereof may be laid at the door of each man's identity. The love of God is spread abroad. It is dispersed. The numberless or seeming numberless attitudes of divine grace, 144,000 attributes, are dispensed across the planet in such a manner that many in a lifetime meet but few affinitized to their own, and some in an entire embodiment meet none affinitized to their specific vibratory rate of the reduplicated patterns of the 144,000 attitudes of God composing the sealed temple of divine identity, repeated over and over again in the great motifs of nature. And with what drama the world is surrounded. Men seek to create through the so-called figments of their imagination various stories that will in some way support their own concepts of happiness or supply them a living, when the dramas of life themselves surge around each life stream. The drama of self-illumination. Now I well recognize how very easy it is for mankind to fall into a rut of self-delusion, whereby the mind alternates between states of grandeur imposed upon the self and the passing stream of thought, or the dream of despite, whereby mankind do misjudge themselves, casting down the opportunities God hath given them as though they were naught, and feeling that of all upon earth they are least. I ask you, in the holy name of God, does it seem reasonable, precious ones, to court either of these two attitudes? Would it not be well to recognize how pure humility itself does not degrade the soul or divine opportunity? Would it not be well to recognize that the grandest gift of the ages was individualized life for each man and woman? Individualized life is God individualized. Individualized life is love made known to that one. And love is splendid when it is God's love. Just as the skin of an apple contains the precious juices, the sweet essence of the tree, the imprisoned sap, energy, so the being of man, behind the screen of the outer form, is a universe teeming with opportunity. Yet men cannot see it. They shrink their consciousness. They become nothing in their own eyes. And this is a great sin against the Holy Spirit. Did not God create all? And were all not equally endowed with opportunity and grace? What then maketh this distinction between men and between one man and another? Misuse of opportunity, misuse of energy, misuse of the ritual of friendship. In misuse of opportunity, men have refused the little opportunities life has offered, hoping for one greater, and thus the stepping stones did not lead to the greater, for by spurning the lesser, they courted not the greater opportunity. In the ritual of friendship, opportunity was not perceived except as a golden fleece where individuals could strip one another of some desired boon, some treasure which the one supposed the other to have. And so men became pawns, one for another, and the slowly grinding mills of the gods, in their great exactness, brought the returning currents of karma to the feet of mankind. And so it goes. So it goes, around and around, as mankind have said, and where it stops, they say no one knows. Well, precious ones, it does not stop. It shall never stop. This is why mankind may as well buckle down and determine within themselves that they will no longer be pawns of their own negative energy patterns, the wrong thoughts from past embodiments which they have fabricated which hang as a pall of darkness over their head. But men determine to transmute these conditions by the purity of love, using the flames of the ascended masters to cut themselves free as though a mighty blowtorch would melt and consume the dense substance of their works. Let men recognize the great spiritual scientific patterns that will show men how to release God's energy through themselves, so that they are no longer dominated. In the words of the Master, the peace-commanding presence, peace, be still. Pure love evoked obedience, and nature, commanded by God, stood still to witness his salvation. In you all the desire to break the bread, to feed the 5,000, to be the central figure before mankind, to be the compassionate one, the dispenser of the bread of heaven is very strong. For it comes from the holy Christ ideal, the immaculate concept of God, which he holds for all sons of his heart with equal fervor. Thus, as I think of the night we journeyed to his creech, I am reminded how that God would kneel at the altar of each one's being, if by so doing he could impart that spark anew, afresh, cutting men free from error and the seduction of the senses, the pall of gloom, the tomb, the spirit of death and dying, the spirit of fear and sighing, the pretensions and the lying, and all that is carnal and dim and dark and without the light. Oh, come then anew, as the tall trees, the cedars of Lebanon, point to the great celestial temple of God, as you see towering into the azure blue the tall, strong, stalwart rod of power pressed into the sod, root beneath and branch above, where the birds nest and the sweet sound of singing is heard. Recognize at all points above, from whence descended love, and springs forth today, asking all to pray that God's will be done again, and comfort flow, erasing stain and asserting truth by God's own name. I am a flame, anew within, a flame from out the mighty blue. I am a flame that cries begin. I am a flame that dares to do. O precious one, as you contemplate the might of the celestial one within you, as you feel the flow of his bands of power, as you feel the strength of his heart pressed to your own, do you see how wisdom instructs her children concerning spiritual triumph, triumph of the ages. You would be Christed. You would teach men. You would be an example. Then seize this opportunity and hold within your heart what love and wisdom mean. Let, if necessary, the bonds of earth part, and all that is vain. It does not matter. For all who hold and seek to save their life shall lose it, and all who lose their life for the sake of the Christ shall find it again. There is no way that man can ever escape, precious ones, from this mysterious round. For God is not imposing on man other than the gift and boon of all of his grace. But the requirement of each day is that men appropriate by free will this opportunity, and thus do take from the hand of God, as a mother bird imparts to her young the substance of holy wisdom required for each day's expansion into God's ways, and means whereby all the density patterns that surround individuals and nations and continents and worlds are dissolved, and the great banner of freedom is unfurled that brings to all the meaning of Saint Germain's flame, the flame of truth, the flame of purity, the flame of love, the flame of healing, the flame of power, the flame of wisdom. These flames will make all of you more than Florence Nightingale. For you will hold a candle of your own being in your hand, whose light will touch the heart of God. And as it touches his own precious heart, down that pathway of illumination will flash an impartation, a consecration, a sonship ray, a blessing forever to stay. This is illumination. For the archives of eternity swing open then, and there shall be no secret thing hidden from the God within thy heart. But on occasion, in order to protect thy being, this great God flame may choose to veil some event, casting its shadow before thee from thy face, that thou mayest have no fear, that thou mayest have good cheer, that courage and strength and the passions of purity may use the chalice of thy mind and heart. You see, most precious ones, we are most fervent in our will to give to you a new concept that will sustain you at the hour of need. Each man who desires to follow this plan will have our assistance. He must invoke it. He must pray for it. He must seek that he may find. He must knock. Wisdom, holy wisdom, tumbling out of this mountain stream, floods into your heart. It is the water of life. These are not mere words, for I am charging them with a sparkling fire of golden illumination, and they are intended to inspire and infire you with a eternal thought of yourself. They are intended to wipe away human tears and fears and human sorrows, and to give you all that steel-like mind that you need. The determination of the diamond hard, consciousness of God, the fluidity of the mercury diamond shining mind of God, the flash of universal substance and essence that penetrates not only through your physical form, not only through the room you are in, but through the world, through the universe, through the stars, wherever you are, and gives you the wisdom you need then, at that hour. For this is the Christ will of God for all. This is the victory of life. And now, precious ones, I am preparing to go. There is something I would like to have said, which shall remain unsaid for this occasion. I shall not elaborate, but I trust that God's ways, higher than man's, will illuminate and pave the way for our freedom to bring forth all the hidden mysteries that man requires, the expounding of the law, the secret teachings of the ages, revealed according to the plan. For it is nigh, even at the door. But we have one requirement. We must have auditors. For if a tree fall, as man hath said, in the forest, and no one be present, will there be any sound? If the trumpet give an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself to battle? If we speak, and there are no auditors, if we sound out the Lord's trumpeting, and men do not cognize, wherefore shall we speak? Precious ones, may I wrap my mantle of golden substance around you? Will you feel the heartbeat of compassion which I feel for you? Will you feel the love that I have for the Christ of your being? Will you understand that this transcends all thought? That this is the ascended Master's love? I thank you, and I bid you good evening in the adoration flame of God's beautiful illumination. precious ones. In past ages, the hopes of men did also rise, and the pulsations of beauty and wonder manifested in the ancient Grecian Isles, and the Aegean Sea reflected both the stillness of the water and at times the turbulence of the restless sea. I recall how that long ago my soul was enraptured by a departing ship sailing into the sunset. I recall how the wind did fill the sails, and the billows of the sea with their spray and foam did create a picture poignant with some longing, as a departing loved one passed from the shore out into the deep. Perhaps I should never again have the joy and the great privilege of seeing that one. And with some measure of human despair, I lamented at the same time as I enjoyed the rapturous beauty of the sunset and the wonders of nature. I am well aware then of the longings, the hopes, and the frustrations of mankind. For a moment I would draw your attention, one and all, to the very beautiful thought of God Himself as standing upon the shore celestial and bidding you, precious ones, adieu, as your souls took flight toward the realms of solidity, toward the realms of form, to earth and to embodiment, going out from the celestial shore to a strange country. And the Father who gave thee life knew not with certitude as to when thou wouldst desire to return. For as the prodigal son, He did give into thee, and even to thy hand, the substance of spiritual identity and power, the pressure and loveliness of higher octaves, the energies of the altar of God, and thou didst take this priceless treasure and did carry it to a strange land, because human will is free, and because mankind sometimes tarry over their cups and do indeed engage in human dalliance, it comes to pass that when the call of the soul, the call of the Most High God, floweth forth across the sea as the breath of the Holy Spirit, that the wandering or wayward child may not always elect to return at the precise moment when the Father's heart is stretching with anguish and longing, as it were, precious ones, interpreted for you in connection with your own consciousness, in form, in time and space. For the Father in reality is never separated from His children. But this great outreach is the desire of the Most High God to bring the outgoing one back with the gestures of cosmic honor, the blessings of the reunion, the vestments of eternal joy and happiness, and the peace that passeth all understanding. Therefore I think now that I can safely expand the strands of consciousness which you have and hold, whereby you daily do take cognizance of all things visible to your senses. And I can remind you of the essence of the spiritual senses that expand beyond the domain of the body and the sense consciousness and enter in to the great sheepfold of God, to behold the Good Shepherd and feel at times the crook of his law of love, expanding out as a rod of power to direct you in that cosmic moment when your soul needs the prodding of the Most High and the infinite wisdom of the Son of God, your holy Christ self, as the bishop of your soul, to teach you at that specific moment that you are in danger and need the hand of compassion from on high to lead you from the thorny path or the rocky road and direct your feet to safe pastures, to green valleys, to rivers flowing with the water of life. I am come then tonight, reminding you that the purposes of the great science of the soul is to bring God happiness to the wandering one, that the sails that mankind behold when parting from one another may be billowed with hope of reunion, of the return, of divine compassion, of the mighty outreach of the celestial hands. For, precious ones, bear with me now as I call to your attention at how few grains of sand, calling each year a grain, have tumbled through the glass, measuring for each of you the cycles of this embodiment as the rings upon trees. It is but the tolling of a few bells, a few new years, and a few birthdays for most of you, by comparison to the great cyclic rounds of eternal substance. For many of the trees of this world, by far outnumber in years the measures of this embodiment for all of you. I call then to your attention, O beloved ones, how rich and beautiful is the compassion of God that has placed you here in the garden of mankind in order that your souls might expand and take flight in due course of time to the land of true opportunity, where beholding the Father's face and free from the vicissitudes of mortal existence, you may know the immortal bonds that truly are the fabric of thy own soul. For it is by the precious power of your soul that you are wedded unto God, children of his heart and longing for expression, expanded into form and dimension so that you yourself might become greater and indeed worthy to be called sons and daughters of the Most High God. For if you had remained as mere spiritual children in the higher octaves, there is no doubt that some limit should have encompassed you round about, for you would have been a mere part of the whole, the cyclic manifestation of the one soul, indistinguishable in part, as one drop of water cannot be distinguished from another in the vast ocean. But as you have come forth into individuality, you have received the precious gift of reality, and you have exercised your soul and stretched its bonds, and thus in form a land of glorious opportunity that leads to the gift of true immortality, true selfhood, has been given to you all. Some have chosen, as in the parable of the talents depicted by the Christ, to do but little with the opportunities which life has afforded them. Others have desired with great desiring to open the doorways of their heart to the presence of the Father of all, that they might be not only his chosen children, but about his business in a more than ordinary manner. Now, as you know, precious ones, some are most content to lead mediocre lives, to do very little to change the face of the world in which they live, to do very little to expand their consciousness, being content to let the thoughts of life flow within the matrices which mankind have acquainted one another with. For it is no resistance, precious ones, whatsoever when life flows in the ruts of human unconsciousness. You may wonder why I've chosen to use this word unconsciousness. I do it because, precious ones, in the eyes of God, these ruts are unconscious of divine reality, for they are a depression cut within the dense substance of man's ideas and mistaken concepts. And they are old, and they are tortuous, and they weary the soul of man. They do not bring happiness. They bring confusion and are a blight to the perfection of mankind. And yet the rivers of human thought have flowed continually in these old boundaries, and they have only on occasions overflowed because of the tremendous radiance invoked by holy prayer. When mankind have in anguish called out to the deity, the additional flow of his energy rushing forth into their souls has first filled the old wells and the ruts of human consciousness, and then has overflowed into the boundaries of the plane of identity, so that for a moment man has been touched, as it were, in part by the grace of God, and raised up a little to behold the light from the mountain, the great glory of God. But then that glory has diminished as man's eyes have once again gazed upon the earthly and ignored the mighty trumpeting from the mountain. Now, precious ones, in this day when the souls of men tremble and mankind express fear as to what is coming upon the earth, for the instruments of destruction are very great, and scientific acumen has brought to mankind an extension of dangers whereby the entire earth could be engulfed in living flame in a matter of moments. To the depravity of human consciousness, mankind continue to look for direction from on high, and there is a great stirring occurring in the hearts of the people, and their minds are fearing as to what shall come upon the earth. At this moment, those engaged in the business of religion often make capital of this fear in the hearts of mankind, and they go forth to encourage men to pursue their specific endeavor of faith, little realizing that what is needed is to fulfill the command of the living Christ. Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. And the sheep of God require orientation around the divine radiance that composes their life. For the movement of the physical body and the power of the mind, the mighty flash of light and holy illumination that flows forth through man's consciousness is of God. It is the flash of his energy. It is the extension of himself in form that provides the great waves of holy inspiration that exalt the soul of man and give hope of immortality, not of mortality. Man is severed periodically from reality by immersion in a bath of the senses, whereby he is shut off from the holy light of heaven. And in this shriveling condition, he stretches out his hands with great anguish, and eventually emerges as a mole from the earth, blinking at the light of the sun, and in wonder perceiving the universe with fear and trembling, when he is in reality a son of God, one who should be bathed in the supernal light of the Son of Being, one who should raise his head with dignity to God and gaze upon the face of the Most High, as a son gazes into the face of his Father, saying, "Our Father." Mankind today are still engaged in the same type of senseless debate as they did upon Mars Hill, when in my Pauline embodiment I came by and spake unto them, saying, "Ye men of Athens." As I passed by, I beheld an altar with this inscription, "To the unknown God, whom ye therefore ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you. God that made the earth and the sea and all life dwelleth not in temples made with hands. As certain of your own poets have said, we are also his offspring. And therefore they gather together in little knots to behold me and to hear me as though they were hearing a strange thing. And this, precious ones, children and seekers of the light, is the condition of the world today. For the knowledge of God is as a strange thing, and the great glory and power of heaven has become a strange thing to those souls who have long ago set sail from the celestial realms and have become acclimatized to the density of the senses, when every bush could for them breathe the flame of God's love, when every bird could twitter as the bird notes of celestial bliss, when the very air could reach out as beauteous arms of light, and the air, with all of its beauty, could surround them and enter deep into their being, blessing them with that specific aspect of elemental life, when the water in their forms and being could be charged with a great feeling of divine love flowing out for all life, ending all strife and vanity, when the fires of the heart could be banked as the glow of God's love and communicated to all they meet, when the earth elements, the mineral life within them, could be transmuted, and the slated density of their being changed in the twinkling of an eye at the appearance of the Christ radiance within the mineral elements of life. Do ye know of that which I speak? For I am no longer now speaking as one in the multitude, addressing the men of Mars Hill, but I speak from the ascended state and with the dignity of cosmic knowledge. I come now today in this age as the possessor of cosmic mysteries. And I tell you, precious ones, that if I were to spell out these mysteries to their fullest to you, and you would not obey the injunction of God, the accountability to you, the accountability to your souls would be so great, it would place you in jeopardy for some time to come, unless you should be fully and completely obedient. And therefore, whenever we stay the hand of release, whenever we fail to discharge the great wisdom which we have received, it is certainly not because we do not have it. It is because to give it to those who have not proved worthy of using that which has formerly been dispensed to them would be to create a possibility of karma. And therefore we speak specifically according to that particular knowledge which will benefit the souls of our auditors and permit them to hear our words charged with the love of God, that will inspire them to throw off the yoke of tyranny, the yoke of oppression, the yoke of human degradation, the yoke of human selfishness, the yoke of immersion in the mass consciousness, and accept the yoke of the lowly Christ of God, lowly because he hath bowed his knee unto God, the mighty I Am Presence, and vowed to serve the life stream of the individual until that one is free. And this is in complete accordance with the great Christed doctrines of God, bound with sacred jewels in the memoirs of the Most High God, the archives of light, and the octaves of cosmic purity. Those who can read these Akashic records can read the records of the purity of their own being before, according to the mysteries recorded in the Pentateuch, even in the book of Genesis, the soul of man did fall into density and form, but not bereft of hope for reunion. Therefore, precious ones, because there is an abundance of hope, because this hope is buoyant, because this hope is compassionate and actual, I am come this night to inspire upon you the mediatorship of a moment. And by this I refer to the fact that each precious moment of life which God giveth to you is a jewel of his energy. And it is a responsibility of mankind to appropriate that treasure as an adornment which can be of assistance to all life you contact, if you will but let it. I shall tonight point out to you how this is so. For the great divine director is depicted himself as charged with jewels of light and a magnificent belt around his form. I tell you, precious ones, that spiritual congealment is not concealment. For the masters do release the radiance of their power and joy to all who will communicate with them by raising the rate of the vibratory action of their being to the ascended master's octave, and open the door of their being to the splendid outpouring from on high. Now then, precious ones, these jewels of light which the great divine director wears can also be the adornment of each of you, who shall accept each moment as a chalice of opportunity, and will call for the charging each day with the rising of the sun, or with the rising of the sun of their being, if they choose to sleep later, and will thus invoke at that moment the charging of the mighty light rays of God into each moment of that day, so that each moment will become for them a radiant spiral, a stairway of cosmic opportunity, where they can communicate their desire to be a part of God by conscious achievement, giving unto Him the power, the authority, and the glory of their own life stream. Do you see, precious ones, that the Most High is most anxious to impart to every part of life the fullness of Himself? God is the great giver, and not the receiver alone of man's worship. He is the great giver of His energy unto all, and in bestowing the magnificent gift to mankind of life and light and love, He is bestowing opportunity for mankind to expand in cosmic dimensions. And this is the sole reality of life. For mankind today, with all of their education, with all of their desire for personal advancement, cannot hold a candle to the mighty power of God as it flows forth and marks for them spiritual jewels of cosmic Christ accomplishment, which are recorded inviolate in the record of their life stream as achievement, outpictured then and there and for all eternity. Do you see, precious ones, what happens when you become specifically advanced in a human way? At the end of the lifespan, all must be forsaken. And I refer, of course, to that which is recorded in the banks of mankind. But in the cosmic spiritual banks, the great celestial records do record for all time all virtue which you have accomplished. No man can take from thee this crown, but man can often wrestle from thee some temporal crown. It matters not that the karmic lords do bring to his feet the record of his defection to life and of his calumny to thee. The fact remains that that which thou hast in the outer is meaningless compared to that which thou hast within. And therefore I say to all, remember that every gift which thou receivest, both here below and above, is the gift of God, and His will, His holy will, is to impart to thee the magnificence of a son of His own heart. Be therefore filled with gratitude this night, that thou mayest well up within thyself with springs of celestial harmony. Be filled with the flow of gratitude, that thou mayest invoke by the greatest cosmic science in the universe the returning love of thy Father who art in heaven. Be filled with the gratitude from the ascended masters for all that thou hast done in the dignity of thy life, and all that thou hast offered to the feet of the Christ, for the flowers that burst now around thy feet, and the fragrances rare, the fragrances celestial, the bells of heaven that ring, are all marking the passage of thyself into higher steps of immortal achievement. No man can take from thee thy crown, for neither height, nor depth, nor life, nor death, nor principalities, nor powers can separate you from the love of God, which is locked immortally in the embrace of your cosmic holy Christ self. The great connecting link, then, that enters into the Holy of Holies and the holy place remains as the bishop and shepherd of your souls. You are children of the Son, of the immortal radiance of God. You need fear no man, for the perfect love of God casteth out all fear. I have come this night in memory of the Christ of God, who did knock me down on the way, saying unto me, it is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. I remember the light of His presence. I remember the smile of beloved Jesus. I remember how the scales dropped from my eyes and I beheld Him. I remember that light, and I remember my journeys of old to declare his good news to mankind. I remember my mission in Rome and all that has passed. But above all, I remember my return home, my victory in the ascension, my reunion when my ship that had set sail from mortal shores had anchored itself within the great harbor of heaven. For there the sun does not ever go out nor down, but remains the light of God, never fails. I thank